When I think of the best running backs in Texas football history, guys like Malcolm Brown, Deontay Foreman, Chris Gilbert, Jamal Charles, Earl Campbell, and Cedric Benson come to mind. Wait, I forgot one. The main guy is Ricky Williams. He ran for over 6,000 yards in his Longhorn career and was a top 5 NFL draft pick. The subject of today's video was actually nicknamed Lil Ricky after his performance last year, and so far in 2021, not only could he be a Heisman frontrunner, but he's also the best running back in college football and could go down as the best Longhorn running back ever. In today's video, we're obviously going to be talking about Bijan Robinson. We're going to tell his story, how he's become a superstar for the Longhorns, and just how good he could be in the future. But before we get into today's video, nearly 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel for the upcoming season, and we definitely can do better than that, so be sure to hit that button, smash that like button for the algorithm, turn on post notifications, and let me know another topic I can do next. Now let's get started and talk about Bijan Robinson, and if he could be the best Texas running back ever. Before Bijan Robinson arrived at Texas, the Longhorns have struggled with consistent running back play. They had guys like Keontae Ingram, Trey Watson, Daniel Young, Michael Warren, and Kyle Hudson, but none of them were really game changers or even 1,000-yard rushers for that matter, and the last guy they truly had was Deontay Foreman. Sam Ehlinger was the team's best runner, and they needed a guy to change the game. Bijan Robinson has been that guy, but let's first go back in time and see how he became a big-time prospect to begin with. He grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and loved football from a young age. He was apparently an early bloomer, and people noticed his talents when he played Pop Warner football. He wasn't just an early bloomer though, as he was not only ahead of everyone physically, but also mentally. He worked harder than everyone else and took the game serious, so that's why it was no surprise he had the career he had. He was built like a linebacker, threw everyone around, hit people hard, and was also super fast and a highlight machine. As a freshman, he was pegged to be the next great West Coast running back, and scouts were looking for any reason to move him down their list or discount his play, but he never moved and the needle was never changed, and he was always a 5-star recruit. So just how good was he? After a brilliant career at South Point Catholic High School, he finished as the state's all-time leader in career touchdowns and second in career rushing yards. His 7,036 yards made him the third player in Arizona history to rush for over 7,000 yards. He's only the second player to ever rush for 2,000 yards in consecutive years, and when it came time to recruiting, you knew he was basically going to be pursued by every school in America, and he was the #1 running back in his class. It was likely going to come down to Texas, USC, and Ohio State though. He apparently gave a silent commitment to the Buckeyes, but when it was all said and done, he had committed to the Texas Longhorns. Quote, "It's family at Texas, and Coach Drayton is a God-fearing man, and that's good for me because I feel he'd be the best for me in developing me as a person. Off the field, he's about staying strong in your faith and being a good man. On the field, he's coached some big-time backs before, like Ezekiel Elliott, Matt Forte, and Arian Foster. It's a good look for me." After his commitment, he wasn't done yet, as he wanted to be the best running back he could possibly be, and he modeled his training after one of the biggest stars of the decade in Todd Gurley. And quote, "In the off-season, I'm training every day. I have a trainer in LA. From January to March, I'm in Tucson. From March on, I'm in LA and sometimes Phoenix. I do similar things to Los Angeles running back Todd Gurley. As he does with his vertical and agility." According to 24/7 Sports, Robinson was a 5-star recruit, the #1 running back, and the 15th best player in the class of 2020. He had all the hype in the world, and he was going to get a chance to prove it at one of college football's most storied programs. This is what one writer from Bleacher Report how Bijan fit into Texas when he committed. Quote, "He's rushed for over 2,000 yards in each of his last 2 seasons and is averaging 12.0 yards per carry for his career. He already has pro-ready size and top-end speed and could emerge as the best back from the 2020 class if he works on his hands. But Robinson could compete for playing time as a freshman, especially if he continues to impress as a senior in high school." Going into the 2020 season, the Longhorns were under head coach Tom Herman and had a team capable of doing some pretty special things. They beat UTEP in their lone non-conference game before they had a tough test with Texas Tech, and it looked like they were going to lose, but they got the game to overtime and would win. Then Texas lost in 4 overtimes to Oklahoma, and Bijan still hadn't really even been a factor in the season. He had 55 yards and 59 yards in his next 2 games, but still no touchdowns. He finally went over 100 yards against West Virginia, but then only had 54 yards in their crushing loss to Iowa State. Bijan had been disappointing to this point, but he would leave his mark on college football in his last 2 games. The Longhorns had one more game against Kansas State, and on only 9 carries, Robinson went for 172 yards and 3 touchdowns in what was a memorable performance. Texas went on to make a bowl game, and they were matched up with a surprise team out of the Pac-12 in Carl Terrell's Colorado Buffaloes.
No one expected them to be there, but they had a great season, and they'd have a chance to prove to the world they were on the rise with a bowl win over Texas. As senior captain quarterback Sam Ehlinger went down with an injury, and Casey Thompson was thrown into the Wolves. Not only did Casey have an electric performance, but Bijan was the one who showed that he was going to be a force and a potential superstar back in the making. Against the Buffaloes, Robinson went for a Big 12 freshman record 183 yards, and he had a touchdown on the ground and 2 in the receiving game. He made a name for himself on national television, and I remember being in awe by him. I wasn't the only one to notice this, as after the Colorado game, legendary Heisman Trophy winning Longhorn back Ricky Williams actually called Bijan Little Ricky. Bijan also became the first Texas player to put up consecutive games of 200 yards from scrimmage with 12 touches in 25 seasons of FBS games. Over those last 2 games, he totaled 443 yards and averaged 18.4 yards per attempt. It seemingly does come natural to him as well, and he just has a lot of fun playing the game, and had this to say after the Colorado win. Quote, "When I'm on the sideline, I'm smiling all the time. I even smile on the field. That's just my personality. I love to have fun playing the game." He finished the 2020 season with 703 yards and 4 rushing touchdowns, so why on earth would he be a Heisman contender in 2021, you may be asking?
Going into 2021, there were high expectations for both Bijan and the Texas Longhorns. Some thought he could be the best back in the Big 12, or maybe even a sleeper Heisman candidate, but no one expected the kind of production he would have this year. In Week 1, we saw the Longhorns open up against number 23 Louisiana. This was a popular upset pick, but the Longhorns took care of business. Bijan did as well. He ran the ball for 103 times and a touchdown, and also was effective in the passing game, as he had a season-high 73 yards on 4 catches, and he even took one to the house. This really helped Texas, and they would need him desperately in Week 2, but they did not get a whole lot out of anyone, to be honest. They lost on the road to Arkansas 40-21, and this was a humiliating loss where Arkansas was just the better team in every facet. Bijan still had 70 yards and a touchdown, but this was his worst performance of the year. Texas would make a statement the following week against Rice, as they would shut out the Owls 58-0. In this game, Bijan averaged nearly 10 yards per carry as he ran the ball for 127 yards and 3 touchdowns. Things would continue to go well for him, as against an undefeated Texas Tech team, Texas would put up 70 points, and he'd run for 137 yards and catch 2 balls for 54 yards and a touchdown. Texas was back to 3-1, and they had a tricky road game against TCU. In what was a thriller, Bijan had one of the best games of his career, as he ran for 216 yards and 2 touchdowns, and helped them beat the Horned Frogs 32-27. Then the Red River rivalry happened. Texas got out to an early commanding lead, and at one point in the first half, Bijan had a run that made everyone's jaw drop. He was compared to Barry Sanders as he broke tackle after tackle and found his way for a highlight reel touchdown, and he finished the day with 137 yards and a touchdown. Unfortunately though, for Texas, we all know how this one went, as Caleb Williams came in for Spencer Rattler and went down and led the team, and ultimately the running back everyone is going to remember from that game is Kennedy Brooks and not Robinson. So far through 6 games, Robinson has ran for 789 yards and 8 touchdowns. He also has 169 yards in the receiving game and 2 touchdowns. So now let's take a look at how I think he's going to finish the regular season. So let's say that Texas ends up playing in 13 games, meaning they do all the regular season games and then get to a bowl game. According to that, Bijan will finish with over 1,700 yards with 16 touchdowns. That number could very well go up, as he has been getting better as of the last few games, and maybe they even make the Big 12 championship. Either way, Bijan does have a chance of breaking 2,000 yards, and if that happens and Texas ends up winning 10 games, I think he has potential of winning the Heisman. Right now, Bryce Young hasn't looked overly spectacular. Matt Corral failed to win on the road against Bama, and I just don't know if Kenneth Walker's going to do enough to win it at Michigan State. Bijan is a legitimate Heisman contender, and if he keeps things up, he could not only win the award potentially, but also go down as one of the best running backs in Texas history, if not the best. He has shown he's at a different level than any other Texas running back over the last few years, and people are already saying he could be the number 1 overall pick in 2023. I know, it's crazy, but Bijan Robinson is a star. What do you guys think though? If you're a Texas fan, how do you guys think you'll finish the season? Who is the best running back in Texas history? Who is going to win the Heisman this year? And what topic should I do next? Be sure to let me know down in the comment section, hit that like button if you want to support today's video, and check out all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.